When you ask someone to name a NASCAR champion, they might rattle off a few recognizable names: Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, Jeff Gordon, Ricky Bobby, and maybe even Jimmy Johnson. But over the 75 years that NASCAR has been in existence, there have been many more champions over the many seasons, and because of that, a few have been forgotten and are not recognizable to casual fans, and even experienced NASCAR followers may question themselves if one of these drivers had even won a championship at all. In this video, I will look into the drivers whose championships have been forgotten, and explain why their championship campaigns have been left to obscurity. This is NASCAR's Forgotten Champions. Before we start, here's a obligatory begging for you to like the video if you like it, and subscribe to the channel if you like the stuff I put out. And most of all, thanks for watching. To start off, I'll name an honorable mention: NASCAR champion that is not exactly forgotten, but more overlooked due to certain reasons that I will go into. This driver is Chase Elliott. You might be saying, how is his championship forgotten if it was only 3 years ago, and if he is still on the grid? In these questions I will answer. Elliott's 2020 season was quite an inconsistent one, with him winning one weekend and then finishing below the top 20 next week. It was largely overshadowed by Kevin Harvick's season, in which Harvick was more consistent, but screwed over by the playoff system, which prioritizes winning over everything else, which largely benefited Elliott to his title. And while he is a fan favorite driver, I don't believe that he is championship caliber, and the lack of talk around his championship and the circumstances around it prove why he is NASCAR's more obscure champions. Now that this honorable mention is over, time to get into NASCAR's Forgotten Champions. For my pick of NASCAR's 5th most forgotten champion, I believe that is Matt Kenseth. Kenseth started out strong in his Cup campaign, with him earning Rookie of the Year accolade in his first full-time season in 2000, with a win at the Coca-Cola 600, the first rookie to do so. And after a winless 2001, he got 5 wins in 2002, but was inconsistent, and so he finished 8th place in the final championship standings. For 2003, Kenseth only got 1 win, but he was extremely consistent, and he clinched the championship 1 race before the end. And very good he did, as his engine failed early in the last race, and so he finished last. The reasons that Kenseth's championship is forgotten is that it wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't like he started out strong, as he took until 2009 to get his first Daytona 500 crown, and he didn't dominate throughout the season or come back from a big points deficit to win the final few races, as his only win came in the 3rd race of the year, Las Vegas. And the only reason that people remember his championship is for it being the last Winston Cup championship, as Winston stopped sponsoring NASCAR after that year. And it was the last year of the traditional points format, as the following year the chase for the Cup was implemented, which prioritized winning, so Kenseth was lucky that his championship came at the time it did. So for those reasons, that's why Kenseth's 2003 championship is forgotten. Now for NASCAR's 4th most forgotten champion, Rusty Wallace is my pick. Rusty Wallace is a driver known for many things: his many years in the Cup Series, his performance winning him races well into his late 40s in the Nextel Cup Series, his broadcast career after he retired. But one thing about Wallace that isn't talked about too much is his championship and his performance the year that he won it. Wallace started out in short track racing in the late 70s, and then moved on to the USAC Stock Car Series, where he achieved success, finishing 2nd in the championship in 1981. Wallace made his debut in NASCAR in 1980, and has his first full-time season in 1984, where he got 14th points. Not bad for a rookie. He moved teams to Blue Max Racing, where he won his championship in 1989, with 7 wins across the season, only 12 points ahead of 2nd place Dale Earnhardt. But his season was pretty average for championship 1. He wasn't too consistent or inconsistent, gained a few retirements across the season, but other than instant in the Winston, now known as the All-Star race, in which he spun out Darrell Waltrip on the final lap to get the win, this season was pretty unremarkable, and that is why it is forgotten. For the choice of NASCAR's 3rd most forgotten champion, I think that is Bobby Labonte. Labonte first started out his racing career racing midget cars in his home state of Texas, and he first raced in NASCAR in 1982 in the Busch Series. Then in 1984, he started working for his brother Terry Labonte's race team, and he returned to NASCAR in 1990 full-time in the Busch Series, where he had a good season, getting 2 poles and 17 top 10s, and he stayed in the series for the next 2 years, achieving success, where he got a few wins. He then moved to the Cup Series in 1993 full-time with Bill Davis Racing, where he got a few top 10s, and stayed with Bill Davis for 1994, where his performance was relatively the same. For 1995, he moved on to Joe Gibbs Racing, which while not the championship force they are today, they were still successful, with them having achieved wins with Dale Jarrett previously. He got his first win in the Cup Series that year at the Coca-Cola 600, then got 2 more wins that season at the 2 Michigan races on the schedule, his 10th in the Drivers' Championship that year. For the following years, LeMond's championship position steadily improved, with him gaining 11th in 1996, a year his brother won the championship, 7th in 1997, 6th in 1998, 2nd in 1999, with him gaining 5 wins and 27 top 10s that season. No doubt that the performance would have taken him to the championship, but he wasn't as inconsistent as he was, as he got 5 finishes outside the top 20 that year. For 2000, Labonte was finally able to put together a championship caliber season, with him gaining the Cup that year, with 5 wins ahead of second place Dale Earnhardt. The reason why his championship is forgotten is the same with drivers earlier on the list, where there were no spectacular ends to the races to end the championship, there were no Game 10 moments, there were no clashes between the championship contenders, just consistency and good driving leading Labonte to his first and only championship. Many remember Labonte not for his championship year, but a spectacular collapse after, with him falling to 16th in the Drivers' Championship just 2 years after in 2002, and him being dropped from the team that took him to the championship after the 2005 season, and many don't remember him for his year that he performed well enough to get the Winston Cup. For NASCAR's second most forgotten champion, I believe that is Bobby Labonte's brother, Terry Labonte. Terry Labonte started racing quarter midget cars in his native state of Texas, just like how his brother would, a few years after, and he raced on short tracks throughout the next few years, and made his first Cup Series start in 1978 at Darlington with Hagan Racing, where he finished 4th. Quite a good result for a rookie's first start. For the next year, in 1979, he finished top 10 in points, despite not gaining any wins. Then he got his first trip to victory lane in 1980 at the Southern 500 at Darlington. In that year, he improved his championship position to 8th. For 1981 and 1982, he got finishes of 4th and 3rd respectively in the championship, but the valor of a win eluded him those years. He returned to victory lane in 1983 with a win at Rockingham. In 1984, he managed to get his first Winston Cup that year with 2 wins ahead of Harry Gant, who got 3 wins. The reason Labonte's 1984 championship is forgotten is just due to the unremarkability of Labonte's performance that year. He was consistent at all tracks, with him gaining his 2 wins at an oval and road cars. And the main star of the year, Darrell Waltrip, got 6 wins, but was a lot less consistent, gaining a few finishes outside the top 20, allowing the unremarkable but consistent form of Labonte to take him to the Cup that year. After a few unsuccessful years for Labonte at Hagan Racing after his championship winning year, he left after the 1986 season and bounced around a few teams, gained a few wins, but not achieving success comparable to his 1984 season, before settling down at Hendrick Motorsports for 1994, in which he returned to victory lane for the first time in 4 years at North Wilkesboro, and won 2 more times that year to an end-of-season championship position of 7th. For 1995, Labonte continued his good form at Hendrick, gaining 3 more wins to a 6th place end-of-season finish. In 1996, Labonte stringed together another championship caliber season, even better than his 1984 season, to his second Winston Cup, in a manner even more forgotten than before. He only got 2 wins ahead of second place Jeff Gordon's 10 wins, but opposed to Gordon, he was extremely consistent, gaining an astonishing 21 top 5 finishes, most of them being second or third place finishes. The reason Labonte's 1996 championship crown is forgotten is, as stated before, he was extremely consistent, and while consistently wins your championships, it doesn't make those championships memorable ones, with second place finisher Jeff Gordon showing off much more with his 10 wins. The unremarkability of Labonte's good form is why his 2 championships are now forgotten. And now, time for NASCAR's most forgotten champion. I believe that is Dale Jarrett. I never hear people talking about Dale Jarrett, and when people actually mention his name in passing, it's usually about his broadcasting work, or his cool UPS liberties in the mid to late 2000s, or even the fact that you could race as him in a UPS truck in old NASCAR games. But I never hear people talking about his 1999 championship campaign, and to see why, we need to talk about how his career led up to that year. Jarrett started racing in the short tracks of the Southeast in the late 1970s, and started racing in NASCAR Sanctioned Series in the early 80s, with him making his first Busch Series start in 1984, which he got a few top 10s that year. He also made his first Cup Series start that year in Martinsville, in which he finished 14th. He continued racing full-time in the Busch Series, making select starts in the Cup Series the next few years, with his first Busch Series win coming in 1988 at the Orange County Speedway in Orange County, North Carolina. Jarrett completed his first full-time Cup Series season in 1989 for Cale Yarborough Motorsport, and he moved on to the Wood Brothers team for 1990 and 1991. In the latter year, he got his first Cup Series win at Michigan. Jarrett moved away from Wood Brothers Racing and joined the new Joe Gibbs Racing team for 1992, and he stayed there in 1993, which he got his second win that year, the Daytona 500. In 1994, he got his third win, still with Joe Gibbs Racing, at the Fall Chart Round. For the 1995 season, he left Joe Gibbs Racing and joined Robert Yates Racing, with Terry Labonte taking his seat. Jarrett got his first win with Robert Yates at Pocono and stayed with that team for the next few years with great results, getting quite a few wins and championship finishes of third in 1996 and 1998, and a second place championship finish in 1997. But for 1999, Jarrett put together his best performance to date, gained 4 wins and quite a few top 5s, ahead of Bobby Labonte, who got 5 wins, but a few more lower finishes, with Jarrett only gained 2 finishes below the top 30, one of those due to a crash at the Daytona 500, which his car flipped, while Labonte got 3 finishes below the top 30 that year. The reason that Jarrett's 1999 campaign is forgotten is just like all the other drivers on the list. He was consistent and didn't perform any barnstorming championship comeback or dominating form, with him being extremely consistent, and that when people remember Jarrett, when you remember his winning days in the early 2000s, his awesome UPS liveries, not his 1999 championship campaign. While looking back at all of these drivers and their championship winning seasons, I realized that none of this could have happened during the playoff era of NASCAR, which prefers winning over consistency, and the theme of all these drivers, these championships, being consistency and not winning dominance. Anyways, thanks for watching. Comment if you disagree or have any other ideas for what NASCAR championships has been forgotten. If you like the video, like it, subscribe if you like the stuff I put out, and I'll see you next time.